painting pals, welcome back to Mandy's Minis. And today I'm going to challenge you with the quad challenge. Now there's a lot of reasons to take up this challenge and why it will help improve the rest of your miniature painting. I am specifically using Chimera paints because they're supposed to be really good with mixing since they're single pigment paint. First thing I'm gonna do is get all the colors out on my palette and start mixing a bunch of different colors with different variations so that I can see what I have to work with. Now I'm mixing up a gray, which actually utilizes all the colors together. I've also picked Wonderful Extreme. It goes from a real deep purple violet all the way through to a bright yellow. You use the actual colors to mix your highlights, shadows. So for me, it's going to be the violet to make anything darker and the yellow to make anything brighter. I'm starting with my shadow color, of course, of the purple. Now, one of the best parts about this challenge is it's going to help you be able to mix paints better. So when you're looking for that exact right shade, you don't necessarily have to buy a million paints because you can just make it by mixing other colors. So it helps that way, and that's also going to save you money. So why wouldn't you want to do that? And you can utilize color theory to make it easier. For example, if you use contrasting colors such as red and green or purple, yellow, orange, blue, you kind of negate them and get into a black or brown depending on how much of each one you add. And so you're able to kind of mix it up and use that to have a better idea of what colors to mix to make the different colors that you actually want. So again, it's a good challenge to take up because you're going to learn an awful lot. And the gray, for example, mix all the colors together, you get a nice black, but the yellow is going to brighten it up, so we get a great gray. And the more yellow I add, the more gray, the brighter gray I end up with. So it really adds a lot to the final product. But mixing colors is just one way this is going to help you out. The reason that I switched to this green instead of doing a red and orange like I had initially picked out was when I was thinking about what I was going to be able to do with the armor and the figure in general, I decided that I could always make orange with the red and the yellow, so I didn't need to have an orange, but the green would add a little bit more of a pop, and I could use that to help make some verdigris on the armor and the swords he's carrying, all the metal bits. Figured I'd just make it rust and use the red and yellow to make an orange, and use the green for verdigris to get some more interest in there. And voila, my color palette works. That's why those 4 colors were the particular colors I used. It's based on the model. If I was doing a different model, I would want different paints. So you need to really think about it before you just pull, random colors. You can add variation to your model by utilizing different textures and techniques to make a limited palette stretch further. Also, here is a great example of an eraser brush. If you've never heard of an eraser brush, well, it's any brush that you own, but if you accidentally hit part of the model that you didn't mean to, and you catch it quick enough, you can just use water to flood the area and pull up all that paint, and then just dry off the paintbrush and soak up the water that's pooling. And suddenly you've fixed it. Called an eraser brush, it's a great technique. And here I'm going into different texturing techniques. So I'm using the sponge to add more of that rust effect and to get different textures. So that's another great way to use to create variation within your model without just reaching for more colors. You can just change up the texture, and then you have a better looking effect. Adding texture to a model can create a depth that you don't always see in a more straightforward paint job. So it can be kind of fun. And I actually do a couple different techniques here that you're going to see. I'm still using the sponge at this point. But when I get into the higher highlights and the verdigris, where I want to be a little bit more careful, I switch and use one of my old paintbrushes that's all frayed, and the bristles certainly don't hold any shape whatsoever. It's just kind of a mess. And you can even see it in the footage here, how spread out those bristles are. And that helps give another different kind of texture, even though it's just stippling and that same kind of thing. But I'm hitting different areas, and by rotating and moving it, I'm getting a much more random pattern as well. And one of the big things you always want to do is make sure you're dabbing off the excess, so you don't get too much on there. And one of the things I really love about this figure is the contrast between the different textures. The real rough armor that's very rusted and beat up, and that plays so nicely against the smoothness, glossiness of the gemstone that you'll see me painting up pretty soon. this is another great trick that you can use to add some additional contrast to your model, as well as to help differentiate different areas and really make it look clean and yet pop. And that is lining. So usually it's referred to as black lining, but in this case, my black is purple, so it's purple lining. And I am just taking, I take a nice detail brush with plenty of water in it and dip it into the purple, make a nice point, and then just trace around all the different elements. And here's the gemstone I was talking about. And if you don't know how to paint a gemstone fast and easy, which I do take a little bit of extra time on this, but still, same idea. I do have a video on that, so I will link that in the description below. So you can always check out the gemstone tutorial. And the other really neat thing to notice in this figure is how much the yellow looks like white when compared to the other colors. That's because color is subjective. It looks white, especially when it's against that dark purple, and that dark purple can look black in regards to, in contrast to that bright yellow. So this challenge will also help you push your contrast on your models, which is the number one critique that we always hear. All of us have always heard, push the contrast, push the contrast. There he is, and I think he looks pretty cool. He doesn't actually look like a limited palette. You know, you can see lots of different colors and variations there. Is it the greatest figure ever? No, but it is a great learning opportunity when you can do this challenge. Everybody, take up this challenge and share your results with me on any of my social media. We've got Instagram, we've got Facebook. You can send it private. You can share it to my Facebook page, or use hashtag #MMQuadChallenge. And I'll be excited to see what you've done and how great they look. I also want to take a moment to give a special shout out to our newest patrons. Thank you so much again for all your support and just watching the video in general. And until next time, have fun and keep creating.